Hey everybody, Jesus Christ, too much Channel Sonic Prime here once again. Oh, let me turn this up a bit to get a little better light. My face. Yeah. Yep. And yep, tonight we are waiting for the results. We're just gonna watch this for a little while. Pray that we actually get some get the results tonight, but I'm aware that it could take days to see results. So
last cycle by a significant margin, by about 10 points as well. The other piece of this
right
too,
now,
let's
look
look
like
at
they're
the
still
gender gap in
commenting
Georgia.
on
The
past
gender gap,
polls
it
and
exists
whatnot,
here, folks. We are seeing, and
as
we'll pull up this
opposed
board in
to
a second here,
final results.
Kamala Harris winning with women, Donald Trump winning with men. And I'll tell you, as I walk back over to the table here, that is something else we'll be watching here throughout the night. She's got to do really well with women. He wants to do really well with men. And in my conversations with campaign sources just in the last couple of hours, they're looking at that as well.
We've called this election perhaps the battle of the sexes election, so we'll see how that plays out. I think we've got a winner to announce, key projection in the state of Indiana. And no surprise here, Donald Trump will win that state again. Here's the data that's just coming in. See if we can get some numbers. And you now know, because we've taken you inside the decision desk, how is it that we can project this with just 15% of the vote counted? It is because we are confident that the margin is sufficient to make that call. So let's let's go to the 270 map. We're going to see this a lot, and we start to fill in some of the gray. Indiana,
I have my Switch hooked up, so
Trump. Let me go right over to Tom Yamas, who's actually looking at Florida. So Florida poll closed, or is it about to poll close?
So anyway,
yeah, they've closed. We have some voting data, and we have in Osceola County. I wanted to show this why this is important. So here in Florida, we have the I-4 corridor, right? And this is kind of the central part of the state. It cuts right through here. When you think about Florida, you can think about it in three parts. The Panhandle, it's very red. That's Trump country in a lot of those counties. South Florida, usually reliably Democratic, but Republicans have made some inroads. And it's this I-4 corridor that is really the swing region. It's also the area where you find a large number of Puerto Rican voters as well. So when we come into Osceola, I wanted to highlight this because we have 71% of the vote in. This is usually a reliably blue county for Democrats. Again, not all of the vote is in. It is still early, but you can see Harris is underperforming in what is historically a blue county for Democrats. 56 for Joe Biden in 2020, 51 for Harris right now with 71% of the vote in. Again, it's still very early. So how is Trump doing? Well, in a county that he usually does very well in, Volusia County on the East Coast here, 56% in 2020 with 70% of the vote in. He's now at 59%. So he's overperforming. Again, still a lot of vote out.
Brazil. That's very,
still a lot to do
nice
here
to know.
and kind of see where the vote is going. But those are good signs for the president. Listen, Florida has been trending red. Trump won it in 2016. He won it in 2020. Actually, in 2016, when that political earthquake happened, it really happened once we started calling Florida. 30 electoral votes. The map gets very, very hard for Trump if he doesn't win Florida. Without Florida, his sort of strategy in the blue wall and everywhere else kind of collapses. He needed this in the win column. Still very early right now, statewide. Only 18% of the vote is in. We can find out where that remaining vote is tonight. So you can see in the major cities, Tampa, we're still going to find out how that hurricane, both Milton and Helene, affected voters there. Pinellas County, just to the west of that, a big swing county. Orlando, that's a hub for Democrats. Duval County, we actually have some vote in Duval County. I want to take a look at this. This is Governor Ron DeSantis' old district when he was a representative. This is the swing county. Biden won it, but Trump won it in 2016. She's doing, look, Harris is doing pretty well. In 2020, Biden was at 51. She's now at 50%. 66% of the vote is still out.
And then just the ironic thing that shortly after they get a whole bunch
of
again,
that vote's trickling in, but we can start to kind of read those tea leaves, Savannah and Lester, and kind of see where the vote's going. Again, still very early, but this is going to be, this has to be a win for Trump. If not, it's going to be a very long night for Republicans.
And a rapid pace there as well in the counting. We're seeing that in some places tonight.
We anticipate, of course, as Tom's just saying, that Florida is a good state for Donald Trump. It is also the first test of Trump's strength. So that is why all of those areas that Tom is just laying out, these are, again, very early data so far, but significant nonetheless, because it will help us, once we get in more, understand how strong he's
Fun fact alert for those who remember the hanging chads of 2000. Florida, in the wake of that debacle, has some of the fastest vote counting in the country. So I tell you, you will not be waiting for Florida for very long tonight. They really get that vote counted very, very quickly. They have the modern machines. They're allowed to pre-process the ballots. So you won't have to wait too long for that.
At this point, are we seeing anything unexpected? expected, though?
So far, I do think the independent numbers are going to be really interesting to watch throughout the course of the night, especially in what we saw in those early national exit polls that a lot of people were identifying not as Republican, not as Democrat, but as independent. So that's a storyline to watch. I'll tell you another trend as we're talking about Florida. Osceola County has a large Puerto Rican population, the biggest of any county, I believe, in Florida. And this is something that I've heard in my conversations with Democratic campaign officials and those close to the campaign, that they feel like that is a part of the Latino population that they can really try to move the needle with here after those controversial comments from that opener for former President Trump.
Well, actually, let's go over to Tom on that. I should say the polls close at 8 o'clock in Florida, but you do get some information for 7 o'clock poll close timings. I think that's part of the confusion here. But we're talking about this Osceola County. It's a third Puerto Rican.
Close, right, yeah.
Right. So it's interesting because you have the Latinos down in Miami-Dade. I know, go ahead and give your shout out. Miami-Dade is the greatest.
Just the greatest county, greatest people. I mean, I could keep going.
But obviously, this isn't,
probably
Latinos come from different backgrounds that have different voting patterns here.
Yeah, it is not monolithic. Just like really every minority group, it is not monolithic. The Puerto Ricans have tended to vote more Democratic. Cuban Americans, Venezuelan Americans have trended lately more towards the Republican side. But I do want to remind you, too, during the Obama years, Obama was able to pull back some of that Cuban American vote. It has changed in recent years. We're getting more data. As you mentioned, Florida's very fast in putting in their data out. So we were talking about Osceola again, their big Puerto Rican population. The same with Orange. This is Orlando. This is a big Democratic stronghold here. Again, 60% in. Look, I don't want to draw too many inferences from this, but you have Biden at 61. Harris is at 58. You could say she's sort of underperforming, but I also want to say it's only 60% in. A bigger number that's coming in that I think is more important, guys, I want to talk about right now is Broward County. This is just north of Miami-Dade. Think about Fort Lauderdale, think about Sunrise, all those areas and those big cities that have been growing over the years, especially post-pandemic. This needs to be a place where Democrats really drive up the vote, right? Hillary Clinton won big here, 66%. Biden did the same at 64. Tonight, Harris is at 60. Again, I always point to this number. All the votes not in. But if you were to call it right now, she is slightly underperforming. We'll wait for that other vote to come in. Guys, over to you.
Tom, thanks very much. We are just minutes away from polls closing in Ohio and battleground North Carolina. We're standing by to make some new calls in the race for the White House. Stay with us.
Battleground North Carolina as opposed to battlegrounds. Seriously, are y'all really just like, oh, I have no life, so I'm just gonna take a Bigfoot photo of Christ Chan. Oh, by the way, you know what? You find me, you're like, I found the avatar. Because you did. Anyway. So that's a meme. Go ahead, meme that up, you know. The beginning of the promo for Avatar Last Member of Paramount Plus, I found the avatar. Yep, then just trying to do a picture of me. There you go. Oh, sheesh. Lol. Mar-a-Lago. No. Yeah, just on intuition, Kamala aside, I also just vote democratically for the other positions that were being filled that were on the ballot. There was an amendment in regards to money being distributed from the spouses towards from the late spouses to their still living to their surviving spouses. Anyway, I said yes to that. I felt like that was a good thing. That was it. Oh, stocks. Stacks? I wearing socks. I'm wearing socks. Oh, good. Thank you for the subscription. I see that popping up. Delayed reaction on my phone as opposed to what I'm seeing right here. FAA approved for kids. Oh. Well, that's a cool looking drone. Oh, another thing. Oh, wait, I'm just gonna read that on here. It's gotta come up in a moment. There's a drone on my phone. Oh, I see. Justin Shoot. Yeah. Happy birthday, Justin. Feliz cumpleaños. Yay. Oh. Sheesh. Oh, lol. Let's see. NVIDIA plus. Huh, that's interesting. merchants votes. Stock quotes. Running influencer. Crew on e-bikes filmed him on his course. Okay. Oh, well, at least he's got some good headlines to react to as well. It's not bad. Oh, okay. I like her hair. I like this her hair color streaks. Oh. Oh. Ours they Brits. Oh. Accidentally blessed the New Orleans Saints. Okay, that's fun. Let's communicate their head coach.
Closer to the Gaza border. A story of resilience and hope. Please take care of yourself and each other.
They do such a Lester Holt.
Welcome back. We're going to be taking you to this view and these numbers here as we continue throughout the evening on the road to 270. Donald Trump out to the early lead with 19, Harris with 3. Let's look at a couple of races that have uncalled so far. We will start with Virginia, 13 electoral votes, just 1% in there in Virginia, but you can see Donald Trump at a widespread right now in Georgia. That's, of course, the first big prize in the among the swing states right now. Donald Trump with 90,000 votes. Kamala Harris, 86,000, but that's too early to call.
So we had some of our first poll closings. We await Arizona in a couple of hours from now. 11 electoral votes. We've got Gotti Schwartz there in Tempe, home to Arizona State University. Big lines there. A real split that you're seeing, that gender divide, Gotti.
Oh, but that's right. Time sounds.
Absolutely. Big lines,
like
big turnout here at ASU. This is the 75-foot line. That's where the line starts. And let's take a walk, because this line is about 7 minutes long if you're looking at the app. The line extends all the way down, and you're seeing so many of these students turning out. You were just talking about that gender gap, and we've been talking to a lot of the students here, a lot of the female students. They say that they've been driven to the polls by the issue of abortion and the issue of how they think Donald Trump treats women. And then you see a lot of males in this line, young guys here at ASU, many of them wearing those MAGA hats that have been given out along this line from organizers here. And they have been telling us that the reason why they are turning out is because of the economy, because of masculine identity. And they've also said, interestingly enough, people have been talking about the podcast wars here in this line, and Joe Rogan, that Joe Rogan podcast, the appearance. We were talking to a couple of guys just a little while ago. They said that they were open to the possibility of voting for Kamala Harris, but when the decision was made not to sit down with Joe Rogan, that influenced their vote. So it wasn't necessarily economy for them, but it was the idea that that Harris was not going to sit down, not going to show what they said was her true personality, and so that's why they decided to vote for Trump. Savannah?
All right, Gotti, thank you.
Both candidates have been courting Latino voters, a huge voting
January
bloc,
6th was not enough, and then just what he did in office, and pretty much overturned Roe v. Wade. I mean, come on, people, vote for Kamala.
And the reason we're talking about Georgia here is because that is a state where the polls have closed, so we can report out some of this exit poll data. Again, 600 polling places all across the country. It's early vote, it's mail-in vote, it's in-person day of, but it is early, right? So these numbers could shift a bit. But what we're seeing in Georgia on the Latino vote is interesting. It is Kamala Harris who is winning the Latino vote, 56%, to Donald Trump at 42%. But interestingly, if you look at the comparisons, former President Trump is doing slightly better with Latinos in Georgia than he did in 2020. He is slightly overperforming with that demographic group. And Jose, you know, and Savannah and Lester and Kristen, this is something the Trump campaign talks a lot about. They think that Donald Trump is going to do better than he did in 2020 with these demographic groups, including Black and Latino voters. Well,
let us bring Jose Diaz-Balart, our colleague, into this conversation because, you know, this effort to try to win over more Latino voters on behalf of the Trump campaign, it's never been about can we win the Latino vote. It's can we cut into her margins enough to make a difference? And are we beginning to see perhaps that strategy pay off?
Savannah, I think the course set for the future of America tonight will have been chartered by Latino America. And we're not talking just about places like Nevada and Arizona, where 25% of the population, the eligible population to vote is Latino, but we're talking about Georgia, for example. 400,000 eligible voters are Latinos. We're talking about Pennsylvania, more than 500,000 eligible voters are Latino. And then, you know, Tom was just talking about Florida, 3.3 million Latinos are eligible to vote there. I think that it's a situation where it's the Latino population, but 36 million strong, is participating maybe in historic numbers tonight in the American democratic experiment, our American democratic
And what's
experiment.
driving that?
I think what's driving that is that there is no Latino vote. There are Latino voters, each with their own individual American dream, with vicissitudes and barriers into what they see as the best future for their children and for themselves. And so I think that what we're going to see in Pennsylvania tonight will have a direct impact on what Latinos come out to say tonight. And in Arizona and Nevada, yes, but also in Georgia and in North Carolina.
Yeah, it's early on, but we're starting to see this flesh out a little bit. Jose, stand by with us. We're moments away now from another round of poll closing. Some big states at stake, including that former battleground, Ohio, and one of the newest battlegrounds, North Carolina.
We are moments away from the polls closing in 3 more states, including battleground North Carolina.
President Trump has won this state twice.
We're going to win North Carolina. We're going to defeat Kamala Harris.
But this year,
North Carolina, we will win.
Kamala Harris is making a serious run for its 16 electoral college votes.
North Carolina, it all comes down to this.
Plus 2 major wild cards. Hurricane Helene decimating the western part of the state. And the Trump-supported candidate for governor.
Now to the scandal that's rocked the governor's race in North Carolina and could have national implications.
A possible drag on the Republican ticket.
We are standing by for the first vote count and new exit poll information for the Tar Heel state as our decision desk gets ready to make new calls on the road to 270. So that sets us up for nicely. Sam Brock, hard-hit Asheville, North Carolina. This was the part of Western Carolina that were really hurt by Hurricane Helene.
I don't know who that
you're
is.
in Asheville now. What are you seeing there?
Cobson.
Sure, Savannah. So where we are right now in Buncombe County, which is the home of Asheville, certainly this is one of the most directly impacted areas by the storm. They're starting to pack up now. Just about an hour or two earlier, there was large applause here because they reached 1,000 people voting in person here at this precinct. And what's so interesting about this particular location is that it wasn't intended to be the voting site. In fact, the church that was supposed to be had helicopters delivering supplies.
No, I don't need to shut the mic. I think you can hear me loud and clear.
In this county, Savannah, that had to shake things up. And as I talked to residents today, they basically
I'm not
told
going
me
to fall for
they had
that
a lot of
meme
confidence
again.
that the communication was good. They were able to find their location. And in Buncombe County alone, you had 116,000 people early voting and then 25,000 more today. These were record numbers in terms of just the overall presence. And the western part of the state, Savannah, and this is really what I want to drive home, outperformed the rest of North Carolina when it comes to early voting. That was at 56.7% in Buncombe, 58%, but then there were 11 different counties that exceeded 60% before people even came on Election Day. And I say all of this as you see cases of water over my shoulder, right? People are still doling out supplies. And just to give you a snapshot of what's going on the ground right now, people don't have potable water. You're staying at hotels where families are still displaced and they are just wondering, when are they going to get their loans for their businesses? When will their employees be able to have stability? These are all the things that are weighing on folks' mind as they're still voting. Now, we talked about North Carolina as a wild card, as it projects strength in terms of some of the turnout here in the rural communities. You also have a scenario where women, 52% versus 41% for men. There was a big gap so far in early voting of women who are voting. And the conversations I'm having, many of them tell me that they do think abortion is front and center for them. We'll see how that plays out.
Happy anniversary to you, Jules.
All right, Sam Brock in Asheville, North Carolina, part of the region that has just been through so much, and yet so many people came out to exercise their right to vote. I want to go over to Tom Llamas because this is the battleground in 2020 that Donald Trump actually won, and he wants to try to hold on to it.
Savannah was the only one that he won in 2020, but it was his close closest margin of victory. Let's take a look at North Carolina right now, and I'll take you back to elections past. So as we just mentioned, Trump wins here, but barely, right? He won it in 2016. He had a higher margin there. We go back to Romney. I want to go all the way back to Obama's first race. Obama won North Carolina, right? But since then, Republicans have been able to flip the state, but their margins have come down just slightly. I spoke with Governor Roy Cooper, the governor of North Carolina, who told me this is going to be their year. So how do they turn the vote out, and how do they flip North Carolina from red to blue? The three places they have to do it, the first one is Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. This is a majority-minority county, right? Jose was talking about the Latino voters. You have about 16% in Mecklenburg County, about 30% black voters there. They have to drive out those voters. The second place, this is the population center here, which is known as the Research Triangle. The capital, Raleigh. You have schools like NC State in Raleigh.
I have a life outside of social
Durham,
media,
you have Duke, and then right next door to that in Orange County, you have UNC Chapel Hill. And finally, the Triad. A lot of people, if you don't know North Carolina very well, this is sort of the forgotten metro area. You have places like Greensboro and High Point, Winston-Salem, along with those historically black universities. These are the areas, guys, where they have to run up the vote. How does Trump win? Well, look at the state. You see how red it is. And here's the issue. It's one of the most rural battleground states. So Trump has to run up that rural vote. And then you were just talking to Sam Brock about the issue of hurricanes. Those are the hurricane counties right there. A lot of them are Trump country, with the exception of Asheville, Buncombe, where you have Appalachian State over here, where Boone is. Those are Trump countries. Hopefully those people are going to go out and vote for him. That's what they need. Back to you guys over there.
All right, Tom, then the Democrats have put on quite the ground game there in North Carolina to try and flip that state in their direction, which would make their path considerably easier.
NBC News now. You know what? That's valid. Oh, got another one. No thanks, I don't smoke. I don't smoke cigarettes or tobacco. And I'm certainly not smoking anything else outside of that, especially right now. No, they are not. You're being stupid in saying that. You're being so silly. Good on her visiting a university. No, there's no one. I'll think about that. Let me take a look. People want attention. So much attention. Happy birthday, Peyton. Apparently I can't find you. I still don't swear I couldn't find you. Okay, so there's that earlier super chat. Alright, well, I believe that message just went through. At least Jim misses you. He's just a guy named Jim. He is not feeling slim. Snap it to a Slim Jim. Yeah, there you go. There's the punchline. Thank you. Have a good night. I'm not necessarily gonna support that shot. And then I got another super chat. Was that the that one just now? Oh. Okay, yeah, there was that one.
morning begins with hope and optimism, a chance to start fresh. We want to welcome you in to share a moment that brightens your day, because every day deserves the best start.
Colette Robertson. Oh, there's no chime. Okay.
And welcome back to our NBC News election coverage. It's 7:30 in the East. We've got some new results to show you. West Virginia, Donald Trump is the projected winner in West Virginia with 4 electoral votes. Here's where it puts us on the road to 270. Donald Trump out in front with 23-3 for Kamala Harris.
Polls just closed in a handful of states. Here are ones that we cannot call yet: Ohio and the battleground of North Carolina, which we've been talking about. Here's our projection at this hour. Too early to call, just not ready to release any information about that yet. Georgia is also too early to call. Polls closed about a half hour there now. And we do have a projection. This has to do with the United States Senate. West Virginia, the winner is Jim Justice. As
Nobody's
expected,
calling it X.
he will go to the Senate. This is a pickup for Republicans. This was a long-time held seat by Senator Joe Manchin, who was a Democrat, then an independent, but still caucused with the Democrats. Well, now the Republicans have picked up 1 Senate seat. As I turn to the table here, and Kristen, just so people understand, right now it's Democrats who hold a very narrow lead in the Senate, but they're looking to, the Republicans are looking to flip that tonight. They need a net pickup of 2 seats. They just got 1.
They just got 1, so it is significant. We are looking at, and this was expected, as you say, Governor Jim Justice winning that seat. So they now turn to the state of Montana. They turn to the state of Ohio. Sherrod Brown looking for a 4th term there. He has gotten a pretty fierce challenge from a Trump-backed former car dealer, Bernie Moreno. So we'll see how that pans out. But one of the things, just zooming out a little bit, a lot of these Senate races have gotten a lot closer in recent weeks. Democrats who felt somewhat comfortable as we've gotten closer to Election Day have seen that margin really narrow. And again, this brings us back to this discussion of split-ticket voters. In 1988, 17 states had different people vote for president versus Senate. That was down to 1 state last year, the state of Maine, when Susan Collins won, but the state went for Joe Biden. So we'll have to watch that very closely. But again, we're expecting that result out of West Virginia.
Ticket splitting has become more rare in the Trump era. However, it's making a comeback in some of these Senate races where people might vote for a different party for president than they do for the Senate.
That's one of the things we'll be watching closely.
And how are you doing some more exit duty on North Carolina?
That's right. So now that North Carolina polls have closed, I want to talk you through some of what we're seeing from these exit polls numbers. And it is interesting here, right? First, we're going to take a look at the non-white vote in North Carolina. These are the black voters, include Latino voters that Tom was talking about in some of those key counties in North Carolina. As expected, Vice President Harris is winning non-white voters based on these early exit poll numbers. But take a look at Donald Trump here. He's got that 25% slice of the pie. Let me show you the comparison. He is outperforming where he was 4 years ago with non-white voters in North Carolina. He was at 19% in 2020. However, 2 things are also true here. Let me show you white voters here, and we can take a look at the comparison here. You can see that it is former President Trump winning with white voters at 61%. Kamala Harris at 39%. But again, take a look at the comparisons to 2020. She is actually outperforming where President Biden was back in 2020. She is doing better with white voters in North Carolina. So you might look at that and you might go, as we take a walk back to the desk here, you might go, okay, well, those 2 things, do they balance out? Not really, because white voters make up a larger share of the electorate in North Carolina than non-white voters. So she might be willing to make that trade.
Georgia right now.
All right, Hallie, thanks. I want to go back over to Tom. Tom, you've got some more information in Florida, but before you get into that, just to be clear, there's 2 poll closing times in the state of Florida.
Yeah, it's what we call a split poll closing. So on the eastern portion of the state, we have data coming in because the polls have closed there. We can tell you about the data. And some of the further parts of the panhandle, they haven't closed just yet, so we won't be giving you that data just yet. We'll probably wait another 30 minutes. I want to show you something that's somewhat surprising. It may surprise you if you watch presidential elections and you follow election nights like this one. So Donald Trump right now, with 73% of the vote in, is up 55% in Miami-Dade County. Again, this is where Democrats find their votes in the state of Florida. Biden won Miami-Dade County by 53. They've now flipped those numbers. This is pretty astonishing when you think where Hillary Clinton was in 2016, 63%, 53. Now tonight, 55. Again, there's still 73% of the vote left. This shouldn't be a complete shocker because Governor Ron DeSantis won Miami-Dade 2 years ago by about 11 points, which was a surprise at the time. But this shows how Republicans are expanding the map and how Florida is becoming more and more red. I do want to show you some potential good news, possibly for the Harris campaign, if they're watching tonight. So we're watching some of the vote come in Georgia. Remember, I told you more than 50% of the vote from Georgia is going to come around the Atlanta metro region. Let's take a look at some of these counties around Atlanta. 74% in Douglas County. Look at her number. 65%. Biden was at 61. So this means she's overperforming in the exact counties where she needs to find those votes. Let's look at another county here. Right now we have Gwinnett. We don't have any vote just yet in Rockdale County. This is another big one. She's at 75%. Biden was at 69. So she's overperforming right now in some of these counties in the Atlanta metro region. Again, guys, this is where she has to drive up her vote. If she can expand the map, scale the Democratic vote there, they can hold Georgia. You remember this was such a close race 4 years ago. Any votes they can find in that Atlanta region is going to help them. Guys?
All right, Tom, thank you so much. We've got guests over at our Insiders desk today, and we also want to ask them what they're thinking of some of these early returns. We're starting to see some themes come out. We've got Cornell Belcher, we've got Mark Lauder. Cornell, I'll ask you what you think about what Tom just talked about. You had the story in Miami-Dade where it's potentially a big victory in that county sign.
I like his hairstyle.
That outreach to the Hispanic vote is working for Donald Trump.
Really
and yet in Georgia, you're starting to see some of that suburban vote really being ramped up for Kamala Harris.
No, I think that's right. Look, Florida is I think Democrats are going to look back at how we've not invested in Florida since the campaign I worked on, the Obama campaign. We've not invested and worked Florida well. And Florida's like a country. It's a really big, expensive state. I think we've taken those resources and we moved them more to battleground states like Georgia and North Carolina, and where you see a sort of a difference. But Florida, you know, is a state that Democrats did not invest a lot of money in, did not run a lot of advertising in, and it shows.
Let me bring in Mark Lauder, Director of Strategic Communications in the Trump 2020 re-election campaign, former spokesperson for Vice President Pence. Mark, give us your view as we wait for a call in North Carolina. What is the Harris camp right now thinking?
Right now, they're looking at turnout, I think. And really, for both sides, it's going to be all about turnout. Do you get your voters out? I've seen some, I've heard anecdotally from some of my colleagues on the campaign that turnout is not where it needs to be in the urban areas for Kamala Harris. It's overperforming in some of the rural areas, including the hurricane-impacted areas. So I think that's a good sign for President Trump, but we're going to have to see how that plays out. Another thing I'm watching, and I know Tom alluded to it with Miami-Dade, but I also looked at Hillsborough County, Tampa Bay in Florida. It was both Hillary and Biden, both +7. Right now, it's only Kamala +1.
And Hillary Clinton actually did some campaigning there for this particular election as well. Mark and Cornell, thank you. We'll be back early and often as we go along here.
And we will take a break here. I think we're going to come back with more on the make or break state of Pennsylvania as the polls get ready to close there.
Yeah, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania. Yep. Anyway. It's like I think they're just repeating headlines right now. Too bad I don't have a newspaper on hand just to comment. Yeah. Good relaxing music. Always good. Oh, I get to see this one. Thank you for that kind support. Disappearance of James Town. Oh, okay, so that's this guy disappeared. I saw this guy a little while ago. I didn't know. Oh. Foul play. Oh. Oh, okay, that was that one. Up, did I just heard Nerd Chime? Yeah. That's not a funny joke at all. Somebody throw a tomato at that Fozzie Bear wannabe. A rotten tomato. Bernie Marcus Home Depot. Yeah, well, it's not like you can name Home Depot after the guy who founded it, can you? I mean, unless the last name was Depot or dependent on a deposition. And that was a pun that may or may not have worked out, give or take. I do hear a few chuckles, though. Always good little elevator music to meditate with. But the binaural beats and frequencies definitely work good. New subscriber, thank you for coming. I think a little bit more water. Agua. Woo! Woo! Peligro! Another juicy dizzy high peligro. One of those classic bits from Sesame Street. At least it broke out into multiple languages there.
Do you pledge not to hold a vote on any legislation that would ban abortion? Do you still have faith and confidence in the Supreme Court? Is this plan to ban price gouging anything more than a gimmick? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Meet the Press on Sunday. Come on down and meet the Mets and the Press.
We're back with our election night coverage and with Tom Yamas at the big board talking about the road to 270, waiting for North Carolina right now. The polls closed there. But how important is that to either candidate in terms of making their path to 270 easier or tougher?
Yeah, let's start with former President Trump because he really needs to hold North Carolina. It was the only battleground state he won in 2020. So let's give him North Carolina. If he holds North Carolina, he flips Georgia and Pennsylvania. He gets to 270. That's his easiest path.
I'm still
but Lester,
deciding on that.
If he can't win North Carolina,
That'd be a
his whole
pleasant
map
surprise
changes.
if I do.
Why do I say that?
Okay.
Because he can no longer win just three
now,
states.
focus
He
on,
has
pay
to win
attention
4.
to this.
He can do it by
at least
winning
in regards
Pennsylvania
to,
and Georgia
states
and
in the East
keeping the blue
Coast.
wall, or I should say tearing down the blue wall, Michigan and Wisconsin. If he can't go there, he has to go out west and win both Nevada and Arizona. That puts him over the top. But again, without North Carolina, for his scenario, he needs 4 states.
Harris has put a lot of money and time and people on the ground in North Carolina. What does it do for her?
Well, look, if she wins these 16 electoral votes, it eases some pressure off her, right? Because her easiest path is the blue wall. If she can win Pennsylvania and North Carolina, look how close she is. She only needs 9 more electoral votes. Pretty much any other state, with the exception of Nevada, gets her there if she's able to win there. So if she can take North Carolina, the Trump team gets much more nervous.
No.
And the Democrats become
I'm still
much
a
more
trans
optimistic
woman, and I
because
prefer
she's won
female
out
pronouns,
east.
please.
If she can win in the Midwest and pick off a state out west or hold it, she's going to be the president.
All right, Tom, let's go back to Savannah.
We talk a lot about the blue wall. Wisconsin is a big part of it, and our correspondent Shaquille Brewster is in Milwaukee with some breaking news, and it's a possible issue with absentee ballot counting. Hey, Shaq, what do you know?
His name is Shaq.
Hi there, Savannah. I want to first start with what we're seeing at these
O'Neal.
polling locations because locations are open for about another hour. I want to let you go inside. I can't go inside and report, so I'll let our camera go inside there now, where we've seen a steady flow of people. At this location, there was a line that went on for more than an hour this morning. You see things have slowed down a bit. The reports from around the state is that the vote process is going smoothly, but where we are seeing hiccups is with the vote counting. We just learned from the clerk in Milwaukee downtown, where they are counting all of the absentee ballots and early votes at once, that the city of Milwaukee had to restart the processing or counting of those absentee ballots. They say an observer saw that while the ballot tabulators were sealed, the door wasn't properly closed on them. And after going through with the bipartisan team and making sure that nothing was tampered with, the city, out of an abundance of caution, decided to restart counting all of those absentee absentee ballots. What this means is that as we expect results from this battleground state of Wisconsin, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. The clerk said in the past that they weren't expecting results from this city to come until after midnight Central Time. We now believe that timeline has shifted 2 to 3 hours later into the night. There's more than 100,000 ballots that those clerks are going to have to work through. So the vote is still ongoing right now, but be prepared to wait as those results come in later tonight,
question about predicates.
All right, Shaq Brewster in Milwaukee. We're used to waiting for Milwaukee
the part of a
into the wee
sentence or
hours of the
clause
night.
containing a verb extending something without the
some
subject.
of the exit polls. I think you've got some North Carolina information and some interesting
something which is
results.
So there's some
affirmed
conventional
or
wisdom
denied
here, and then there's some data that flips the
argument
conventional
of a
wisdom on its head. So let's
proposition.
talk about that, specifically as it relates to these age groups. We know, right, the Biden coalition in 2020 that propelled him to the White House
So predicate
involved
can be a
young
synonym
voters,
for
right? And for our
effort to
purposes, young
affirm.
is 18 to 29. In North Carolina, and I want to show you here, you
pray
can see
that
that
at
for
least answers
older
your
voters, and I'm
question.
talking senior vote here, former President Trump won those older voters. That is not unexpected. His campaign has long thought that he would do well with seniors. But here's what's interesting. Look at Vice President Harris. She's got 47% of the senior vote. She's doing better than President Biden did with seniors in 2020 in North Carolina. So she is outperforming where he was 4 years ago.
Did they not know anything about
Then you
January
look at that
6th or
youth
just
vote, right?
see
Again,
the whole
not
narcissism
unexpected
and
that Vice
arrogance
President
from
Harris would have a
Trump?
slight
What's
lead. And
wrong
I would
with
say
those
this is
people?
very close.
Nothing
We
against
are
them
waiting for
personally,
more numbers
'cause
to come in, more of
all
these waves
people
as they're
have their
called from
own
the exit polls, but still interesting.
individual
But again, look at
wisdoms and insights
48%
about
for
that,
former
but
President
still,
Trump. He is outperforming among
they should
young
know
voters
better, I
in
feel
North
like.
Carolina. So you have
Oh,
that
then
kind of
also,
conventional wisdom. They're
brain
overall sort of winning the groups,
mentality,
at least to a degree
what
that we
can
thought
happen
they'd
to the
win.
brain in an
But
old age,
each
yeah.
of them are overperforming
I feel
on
like
the
it's
sort of
enough
flip
said. I'm
end
not
of
gonna
that.
All right, well,
say
Savannah
anymore.
Sellers is here to talk about a huge role that the youth vote could play in the outcome of this election. What have you been seeing? You've been tracking a lot of the polls leading up to tonight.
Yeah, I absolutely have. And first, I want to dig in a little further on North Carolina and what Hallie just said, because if we dig even deeper in and we talk about gender in that under 30, it's similar to the trends that we've been discussing. Trump has improved what he did with young men. Tonight, 60% in our NBC News exit poll there say they support him. That is up from 42% that voted for him in 2020. Whereas with Harris, she's performing even better than Biden did with women. 65% saying that they support Harris in this
Get your
exit
head
poll,
out of your
and
pants and
58%
your own
actually said
personal
so.
egos, and
That's
actually
just North Carolina. That's our North Carolina
just like,
exit
you know,
polling tonight.
be
North
not
Carolina
so
is really
selfish
interesting to me
about
because I've been
things.
talking with college Democrat
Gender
and
differences,
Republican
I mean
presidents on
that.
campuses there. But the college Democrats were so organized in this state. Like what they
There's
did
no
on these
such thing as
campuses
a,
was really
quote,
amazing. They
alpha male in
lobbied the
that
state to
sense,
have more
especially
polling
those that
places on
think they are the
campuses.
alpha
They even
male.
had it be made that the student ID could be
There's
an
a whole bunch
acceptable
of
form of
eye-rollers
ID
in that.
on several campuses, which was not the case prior. We're also seeing this kind of play out to be right what we're seeing with that young men
it's
appeal
common
for Trump
sense.
seems to be working in some places.
common sense
I'm
that,
interested to see if that
even
continues
men
throughout the night.
should
We heard
think
Gotti mention like those podcast
indiscriminately about
appearances
what
earlier in
actually
the
is
night.
fair and
Joe
good,
Rogan,
what
Logan
history
Paul,
has
things
said.
like that. This seems to be where
And the
he is
patterns that
gaining
was
that
there
ground.
before,
I'm interested to see if it continues in other battlegrounds.
And just
Obviously,
underscoring
that
how
check
important
could
the
be
young vote
repeated.
is, the Harris campaign tonight
Which is-
touting the fact
which
that
is
they
why
have Paul Rudd, for example,
Praying for
out
Kamala.
trying to energize
Being our
college
next
voters in
president.
Pennsylvania. Jennifer Garner as well.
Keep them in line.
This year.
Stay in line.
Mark Cuban is FaceTiming voters in a 4-hour line at UNC
Exactly.
Chapel Hill
It
right now.
speaks to how close this race continues to be as these results come in. On the other hand, you have the Trump campaign saying, hey, we're seeing good turnout in Philadelphia, yes, in the Trump areas. We'll have to see how that actually bears out when we start to get results in Philadelphia. But it does speak to the fact that there's a real focus on this
third parties
epicenter
are
among young
okay.
voters.
And when we talk
It's
about
just
young men in
unfortunate that they're
particular,
not as
and to the point
popular.
that you're making here at the table, that the Trump campaign has really looked to
it's
turn
pretty
those
much,
young men out. They're not typically
nice-
the
it is
people who
nice to have
show
the
up
choice,
to the
and I do
ballot box
appreciate
every
that
4
part.
years.
I
They're
have
what's
actually
called those
supported
low
that as
propensity
well.
voters we've been talking
Third
about.
parties,
I will tell you that the Trump
other
campaign feels like
parties.
they've been doing a pretty good job trying to turn those, you know, not always voters
options
into
are
voters
good,
at least this
but
cycle,
still,
because for them, that's one of the big keys.
when it
If
comes
they
down
can
to
get
it,
this
I mean,
demographic out to the
unless they
ballot box
actually
to
do
actually show up,
do
whether
more-
that was early or whether that's
do
now,
to be more
they're feeling
popular.
like they're going to have some wind at their back.
It's, you know, you
Then
take a
it's
step
not
back.
likely.
The story of this election is the gender gap. It's the battle of the sexes election, and whether you want to say it's young men or senior women, or it's men and women. If Trump turns out more men, he wins. If Kamala Harris turns out more women,
heard
she
that
does.
shine.
It's kind of as simple as that.
No doubt about it. And what's so fascinating is that the Trump
The
campaign
merge is happening
tried
regardless.
this sort of unusual,
And it's been in
unconventional
progress. If y'all would
tactic
just
to
open
get
your
out the
minds
vote,
and
which
just
was
like
to
actually
outsource it to
see the
Elon
rifts
Musk,
that have
to
been
other
forming in the
outside
skies
groups.
and all around
they
you
were quite bullish
worldwide,
heading into tonight, saying, look, we feel good about this decision.
And remember, the Harris campaign was concerned about black men as well.
That's
I mean, they brought in President Obama to make the case. Any evidence right now how that appeal has translated into votes tonight.
Well,
that's one of the
opening your
things
mind
that
and
she
your
has
heart
talked
and your
about on
soul
the
to
campaign
actually
trail. I sat
realize
down with the vice president not too
greatly
long ago,
understand
and she
that,
feels
at
like
least for
she needed to
yourselves.
earn every single one of those black male votes just as much as
It
Joe
is
Biden
happening
would have. That's why
physically
you
on
saw
that
her. We
part
talked
as
about
well.
podcasts,
We got
doing
another
like an
one.
NBA podcast, a football podcast. Sure, she did call her
For
daddy
the
to try
night,
to reach out to those young
I
women.
do not
That's the name of
consciously
course,
know who
that
or
very
what that
popular
is, unless
podcast
you're
with
talking about
women.
the,
But she also was
the
trying to
bird
extend an
Pokemon
olive
from
branch
Sword
to
and
men. I would just
Shield,
say this: two
which
things
I
are
feel
true.
like that's an
Right?
okay bird.
Kamala Harris. Let me say it this way: Donald Trump is doing better with men based on public polling right now than Kamala Harris is doing with women, though that gap exists.
She's very good.
But also remember that historically, women have turned out more than men in every election dating back to 1980, and so
On
that is
par
going to
with
be one of the big
Lisa
key
Simpson
factors into
herself.
tonight.
And that's why that moment with former
And I
President
mean that
Obama
more
was so
in more than
significant
one
when
sense.
he called on them not to stay at home.
All right. Well, we're just a few minutes away now from a big batch of poll closings at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, including the one that everybody's been watching, Pennsylvania. And we'll be right back.
Pennsylvania. Okay. Oh, that's another one. Oh, we got chime in at the same time. This one came in late. Anyway, so waiting. Live stream. Well, I'm not going to respond to that. I'm choosing not to respond to that. Anyway. Yeah, I think we'll be switching over to Switch in a little while. Give y'all a little bit more entertainment. As if this hasn't been entertaining enough. In the entertainment industry, the proclamation stated, I quote, everybody will find a random walnut in a donut shoe. And that was pretty random enough as is, so I don't know, just go ahead and beam that up. Beam full like being live from New York with a hippopotamus standing on top of the ever-free Everglades. When you're connected with the Akashic Records, you gotta find a random thing spout from you from time to time. It's no big deal, just a bit annoying. I'm okay with that. There you go, that's it. Oh. Well, thank you for the dollar there. Dollar minus a penny. My brain is feeling like somewhere else. What is love? Love is love. When you have a lot of it, you're a cut above. Yeah, I'm not gonna repeat myself. Let me think.
More Americans turn to NBC News than any other news organization.
News
NBC,
in the now.
National Broadcasting Corporation.
Let's
break down what we know.
You gotta see this. News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
NBC News. Oh, we got another one. No.
Welcome back to
you?
our live election night coverage. We're coming up on the 8 o'clock hour here in the East. You are looking at vote counting centers across the country in this historic election.
Some polls have closed, and some places people are still voting.
They are indeed. And we're about 6 minutes to the next poll closing, where we'll get our first look at the real vote count from the biggest battleground of all, Pennsylvania, which we've been talking about, states that have been moving quickly.
We are moments away from the polls closing in 16 states and the District of Columbia.
171 electoral
of all the
votes
words
up
you
for
keep
grabs
typing
in the
up
biggest
to
haul
super
of the
chat
night. Florida,
short
with
words
its
like
30
that.
electoral votes, could be one of the first
type.
big calls of the
Just
evening.
be like what happened on
And we'll get
Sylvian's
our first results from
chat.
what may
Be like,
be the most important prize
of
this
all
election,
the words in the English language
Pennsylvania.
used,
We love
you decide check the comment bacon once.
The race could all come
The
down
word
to the Keystone
bacon.
State.
Pennsylvania is extremely crucial.
If Vice President Harris
Anyway, I heard
loses
those
the
chime.
state,
Pennsylvania, it all comes down to this.
her path to 270 narrows significantly.
We're going to win Pennsylvania.
So, Pennsylvania, are you ready to make your voices heard?
We're standing by for the first vote count and new exit poll information from this critical battleground as our decision desk gets ready to make new calls on the road to 270.
270.
All right, getting ready for Pennsylvania. NBC's Stephanie Gosk is in Philadelphia. Stephanie, this is where the Harris campaign really needs to ramp up those turnout numbers.
Really
What are you
laughing
seeing?
it up here.
Yeah, they really do. Well, it's calming down here in Northeast
comedy show
Philadelphia. This is kind of a working class, diverse
super
community.
chat
People
fails.
still getting in under the wire in these last few minutes. But the big question, Savannah, afterwards is how long is it going to take to call the state of Pennsylvania? 4 years ago, it took until Saturday. I was on the phone with the former Secretary of the Commonwealth talking about the challenges they faced back then. 2.6 million mail-in ballots. That was what slowed the process down. And it was a new process for people in this state. 4 years later, they haven't changed the laws, but things are a bit better. There are fewer mail-in ballots, just under 2 million. They have new machines to process them and more people. But the optimistic outlook from election officials we have spoken to is that the majority of those mail-in ballots won't be fully processed until Wednesday night into Thursday morning. And if this race is as tight as it was 4 years ago, when Joe Biden won by about 80,000 votes, those mail-in ballots will be crucial to make the call here. So we're still talking
new band
days, Savannah.
featuring
And some of these
people
big
that we don't know
jurisdictions
of
like
yet.
Philadelphia, Stephanie, now they have election workers who are prepared to work all night and
Nobody's
count all
doing
night. So perhaps it goes
that.
a little bit quicker. We'll
making any
check
crap
back with you a
on
bunch.
live
We have
stream.
got Tom Yamas over
We're
at
not
the big
doing
board,
that.
and you're still
This is
getting
not that
vote in
type of show,
from
not
Georgia
that
and
type
North
of
Carolina, two big
individual,
pieces
so
of the
there.
puzzle.
Yeah, and I want to talk about Georgia right now because North Carolina, there's still only about 2% of votes in. Let's look at Georgia because I think what is happening here when we talk about Kamala Harris and her chances, she's overperforming Biden in some of these counties around the Atlanta metro area. I'm going to move the map over this way because I'm going to bounce around. Here on this side, the right side, this is where Biden was at 2020. Here's where Harris is tonight, 76% in. You can see she's overperforming there. We come to this other county, Clayton County. Again, these are the suburbs of Atlanta, those ring counties around Atlanta. 84% for Biden, 85% for her, so she's holding that high watermark. We move over to Rockdale. Look at this, 69% for Biden, 75% tonight for Harris. They're looking at these numbers tonight, and again, there's still a lot of vote out, but they're looking at these numbers tonight, and they're telling themselves this is the kind of rhythm they want for the rest of Georgia throughout the night. Only 25% of the vote is in. Trump is way on top, but again, 25% of the vote is in. Remember, we can show you guys where the vote is out, these giant bubbles. The bigger the bubble, that's how many votes still have to be counted. So you can see a lot of the rural counties, a lot of them are coming in. There's still some in the rural county that are out, but the big area, remember, 50% of the vote is going to come around the Atlanta metro region. Let's also talk about Pennsylvania, guys, because we're getting close to getting some information in Pennsylvania. And remember this, 2020, Joe Biden wins the state. It is going to be the keystone state and the key to the election tonight. Trump won it in 2016. The difference, about 40,000 votes. In 2020, he wins by about 80,000 votes. Biden does. The interesting that has happened, and we've learned a lot about Philadelphia, the counties around Philadelphia, places like Chester, places like Montgomery County. Those people in the know call it Munco. We'll talk to Hallie about that, as well as Kristen Welker as well. Delaware County, Delco, and Philadelphia County. This area right here, this makes up about 30% of the vote for Pennsylvania. We're going to be watching what happens here. What's interesting that happened here in 2020, so Biden actually underperformed Clinton, but he overperformed in those suburbs. So we'll be watching what happens there. You also have these swing counties here, the Lehigh Valley, Monroe County, part of the Poconos, Northampton, and Lehigh. Lots of Hispanics here. We're going to see what happens. And we're so honored to have both Kristen and Hallie, people who know about Wawa. They know about Eagles fans. They know about steaks. Come on. How good is Wawa?
Phillies.
Always the best.
Always.
But Tom, you forgot to ask them cheesesteaks, wit or wit out?
Wit.
Okay.
Whiz wit out, babe.
Okay.
Whiz wit out.
All right. Well, we have a lot of time just to do
talking
Philly
about Wawa.
talk.
Are you talking about the restaurant?
Pittsburgh
There
out,
is
but we
a
got
city
coming up on a poll
Pennsylvania.
closing.
Yeah, 21 seconds until the top of the hour. Another poll closing. We're going to hear from about 17 states here.
They're available on the
hour, and there's our
they're available between the
election
Etsy
alert
as well
we
as on the
stand by in
Quick
the
Like
drama
website
building
the
now
medallions
because
are.
we've been talking about. We're going to see Pennsylvania. Those are the other states that the poll closings are about to occur in fact about 1 second. And we'll be able to get some characterizations for you here in just a moment. We'll look at those 8 o'clock poll closings. Here's an NBC News projection. State of Florida. NBC News projects that Donald Trump will win Florida and take its 30 electoral votes. The state of Massachusetts, Kamala Harris, the projected winner tonight with 11 electoral votes. Donald Trump, the projected winner in Tennessee tonight. 11 electoral votes there. In the state of Maryland, NBC News projects that will go in the Kamala Harris column. We move on to the state of Missouri. NBC News projects that Donald Trump is the victor in Missouri when all the votes are counted. Here's what Alabama looks like. That will also go to Donald Trump. State of Oklahoma, this will be projected to go to Donald Trump. And in D.C., District of Columbia, 3 electoral votes at stake. NBC News projects that Kamala Harris will win there. So where does that leave us now in the road to 270?
No, we're not bringing the webcam anywhere outside this room.
27 for Harris, 270, of course, the magic number and the keys to the White House.
But we await calls in those all-important battlegrounds, and there are still outstanding states. Just as polls closed at 8 o'clock, we will wait for New Jersey, Illinois, Connecticut, and, of course, Pennsylvania as well. Let's show you what we can right now in Pennsylvania. No surprise here. It is too early to call. North Carolina, same story. They do count fast there, but not fast enough to call it. It's still too early to call. Just 5% of the vote in. And in Georgia, we're seeing a lot more of the vote.
Nothing is
MAGA.
MAGA.
Too early
MAGA
to make a
is
projection.
Stupid.
Let's go to Tom, who's starting to look at some of the numbers here. And I see you've got Virginia up there, which is a potential
it's so outdated, like
something that might give us some
Covfefe.
indication about how this night might go.
Yeah, and it's a state that we can look at to see how the
he's already
suburbs are
been
going to perform
cursed.
across the country. I know a lot of you guys know the D.C. area very well. 30% of the vote is going to come from these northern suburbs. It's a good barometer to know also how Harris is doing with suburban women. So let's go to 2020 to compare here. So Prince William County, it looks like Harris is slightly down with 75% of the vote in. This one stood out to me. 95% of the vote is in Loudoun County right now. Biden was at 61%. Harris is now at 56%. Again, there's a difference of about 35,000 votes. 95% is in, and we can actually see how much of the vote is left. Only about 3,600 votes remain in Loudoun County. So she's underperforming a little bit there. As we keep going here, Fairfax County, 45% in. She's at 68%. Let's see how Biden was doing there. 69, about the same. Something else that's interesting that's happening in Virginia, Virginia Beach. This is a swing county. Trump won it in 2016. Biden was able to flip it. Tonight, Trump is on top, but only about 20% of the vote is in. A lot of the western part of the state, as we know, is going to be more rural. Some of that coal mining country, it's going to resemble West Virginia. We have some of the vote in a county like over here, Wise County. This is a good Trump barometer. He's at 78%. He was at 80% in 2020, but 41% of the vote is out. He's underperforming slightly. I guess the thing that sticks out to me, which it's too early to know if it's a red flag, but Loudoun County, again, you know, this is a place where Democrats want to run up those votes in Virginia. Not that Virginia is in danger for Democrats because they were able to run up the score in 2020. But Trump in 2016 got close. He got within 5 points. A number like this, it's going to worry them a little bit. But I know you guys know much more about that area than I do.
Well, actually, we're honored to have a resident of the Commonwealth of Virginia with us, Chuck Todd. So, I mean, you look at that. You know those suburban collar counties around Washington, D.C. very well. Is that a warning light if Kamala Harris is not performing as well as Biden did in some of those suburban, exurban counties?
It could be if we're going to see that if it's moving. You know, Virginia is sort of the gateway now to the north rather than being, I always joke, it's sort of seceded from the Confederacy, right? It is the one southern state that has been consistently a Democratic state, not even a swing state anymore. So if that is consistent, yes. One thing I've learned, though, with the Northern Virginia vote, you may have 95% of the vote in. That 5% can account for a lot more uncounted vote than people realize. So, and there is a sense, so that's a wait and see. Look, the bigger thing that I've taken away so far is we're in the middle, we've been in the middle of a political realignment for a decade. And every one of these presidential elections, we're like, hey, look at this. The fact of the matter is Donald Trump's makeup of his electorate this time is much different than it was in 2016 or 2020. And I think we're seeing it both break on ethnicity and geographically. So it looks like that Donald Trump's going to be stronger in the Southeast. Why? Because he is doing better with Hispanics.
That's right.
And there is a larger population of Hispanics in the Southeast and the Southwest than any other part of this country.
It's like I mentioned earlier.
Exit polls indicate that she is going to do better with older white women. I've been messing around with Indiana. Indiana's not going to, it's a red state.
You've been messing around with Indiana. What have you been doing in
Indiana,
Indiana, guy?
Even in the rural counties. Indiana's a very white state. It's a tea leaf. Yeah, I just throw it out there. It's a tea leaf. They obviously border.
Where those voters go?
No, she's performing a couple of points better. So clearly there are some older whites.
I am not going to agree with that.
And we could really see this country divided by regions where she's stronger in the north because she's improving with white voters. And he's stronger in the South because he's improving with voters of color, in particular Hispanic voters. We're not seeing as much evidence among African-American voters, but definitely Hispanic voters. It's not just Florida. I think Georgia, we're seeing it as well.
Well, we're seeing it nationally, too. When you look at some of the numbers here, he is +10 specifically with Latino men, according to our exit poll nationally, a demographic group that Joe Biden was +23 with 4 years ago. So it is definitely a shift, and it is definitely one of the headlines that we're watching as we're seeing these exit polls come in.
And we see that, I mean, the Latino vote is not just concentrated in the Southwest.
That's exactly right.
It's not just the Southeast. It's also in Pennsylvania. There's a huge Latino population in Pennsylvania.
We have been talking about the ground game quite a bit. It's been heavily focused in Pennsylvania on trying to energize Latinos on both sides. Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump really focusing on that in places like Allentown, in places like Reading, Pennsylvania, trying to make sure that they are getting them out to vote and flipping them if necessary.
And let's not forget, Kamala Harris wrapped up her campaign last night in Philadelphia, showing once again demonstrating the importance of that state, as we are going to find out here in the hours to come and perhaps days.
And Hallie, you've got some more from your exit polls.
You know, it's interesting. Chuck's talking about the graceful removal from the chair. Thank you all for bearing with me. Chuck's talking about the realignment here and where people are sort of politically. One of the things we're watching on that front is this idea of independent voters. We know that they are going to be potentially a crucial voting bloc here. Vice President Harris had made overtures to this group in the closing weeks of her campaign, really trying to win them over, to get them over to her side. Look at how they're breaking nationally here. She is winning independent voters nationally, 51%, yes. Donald Trump, 44%. Here's the thing. Nationally is not how you win or lose the White House. You win the White House in the battleground states. And look at the state of states, Pennsylvania, right? The most key battleground this year. In Pennsylvania, it's the opposite. It's former President Trump who is actually leading with independents over Vice President Harris in this really important state where the margins could be really close here. You can see it here. He's at 50%. She's at 44%. Again, that's in Pennsylvania. So you might ask, okay, well, how does that compare to how he did 4 years ago? He is overperforming generally with independents now in Pennsylvania. You see in 2020, 44%. He's doing a bit better now in 2024, 50%. And Savannah, Lester, Chuck, Chris, and I'll toss it back to you at the table. This could be really interesting as we watch this develop throughout the course of the night, not just in Pennsylvania, but in some of these other key battlegrounds as well, like Michigan and Wisconsin.
Actually, I think Chuck wanted to weigh in.
No, I just think we are seeing something else happen, which is you have a country that's really sour about our politics, sour about the direction of the country, and we now have fewer people identifying with the two major parties, according to our exit poll. It's a huge development. Independents are the fastest growing flock. Now, it's very rational. If you don't like the direction of the country, you don't like what's happening, and you think there's a threat to democracy, do you have a lot of faith in the two major parties? But the lowest share of major people identifying with the two major parties in at least 4 elections, it means these independent votes are going to be the whole ball game. They're going to decide who's president.
We are keeping a sharp eye on the state of Georgia. We can show you where things stand, but we've just had a change of characterization here. Our characterization from the decision desk now is that this is too close to call. You can see about a 267,000 vote difference between the two, with 37% of the vote in. But again, the NBC News characterization at this point, too close to call in Georgia.
We've got a lot of contributors lined up to talk to you tonight. We've got Senator Claire McCaskill, I believe, over at our Insider's desk. And Senator, I wonder what you thought about that. What some are seeing is something of an alarm bell. This Loudoun County, suburban Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia, where it seems that Kamala Harris is underperforming. And as you well know, the suburbs in the battleground states are key to her victory.
What we got here?
Yeah, listen, this is the witching hour. You know, this is when It is very early.
Okay.
We have exit polls, and by the way, if exit polls were correct, I would be
Well, it's
governor
nice
and
to buy
John
a
Kerry
little
would have
bit
been
private
president,
deals, actually.
and Hillary Clinton would have been president.
Thank you.
So I think
what's this
we've
now?
got to take all of that with a big giant grain of salt and wait for the actual numbers to come in, because as we all know, these come in from different places.
Well, maybe you ought to
Typically,
turn
rural
your
places
speaker
come in
up, huh?
before urban locations. So I think she's going to be fine in the suburbs. I think, and I don't think the exit polls will actually reflect
Okay, what was that
accurately what
show
will happen
about?
with independent voters. I'm not saying she's going to dominate independent voters, but I'll be very surprised if there aren't a whole lot of women that call themselves independents that don't vote for Donald Trump.
At what point in all this do you begin to let out a sigh of relief here?
Listen, I think depending on what happens in Georgia and North Carolina, if by any chance she wins those two states, then I can breathe again. If she does not, then obviously Pennsylvania becomes even bigger. And don't sleep on Nevada. I think that may be the closest margin in this race. I think it may be literally maybe 500 to 2,000 votes separating the two candidates. I think it's that close in Nevada.
Well, we're waiting polls to close there in less than an hour. Nevada and Arizona, those big Western battlegrounds, but we do not expect results there, frankly, for days. So I guess Senator McCaskill is going to be holding her breath for a very, very long time. We've got Sarah Fagan here, too, a veteran of Republican campaigns. And again, with all the caveats, we are reading tea leaves right now, Sarah. What are you looking at? What are you noticing? And how do you see this shaking out?
So if you look at Florida, you look at Virginia, Donald Trump is running about 4 points better than he did in 2020. But then contrast Georgia and North Carolina, where I should caveat that less of the vote is in. He's running 1 point ahead in Georgia. He's running a little behind in North Carolina, where he did in 2020. And that says to me, perhaps, that the Harris GOTV effort is quite strong, that she's pulling her votes out in places where the campaign organized. So she's holding that margin closer.
And the GOTV, for those of you just joining us on Political Nerd Fest, get out the vote, the ground game, what we're talking about. It, you know, this is about when you say, you pull the bus up and you say, let's go, we're going to hold you by the hand and take you to the polls. And organizing is the key to any successful campaign.
Absolutely, and you have the Harris campaign touting the fact that, for example, they knocked on 3 million doors over the weekends. It winds up being numbers, though, until people actually go to the polls and vote. And I do think, just bouncing off something that Chuck said earlier, it's just to zoom out for a moment. Remember that one of the biggest issues of this campaign was change. What people really want is change. And so what you saw in both of their closing arguments was an attempt to argue they're the change candidate. And so what we are seeing, for example, with independents, I think is notable, because I think the person who winds up winning this race will be the person who ultimately voters say, that's the change candidate.
And like everything in this election year, it's complicated because you have a former president, so there's a certain incumbency there, and a sitting vice president, and there's certain incumbency there as well.
There's something baked into Donald Trump's call for a change here, because he was already in the White House for 4 years. Same thing for Vice President Harris, as you're looking at the popularity or favorability rating for President Biden, which is low. And so the question, is that going to be a drag on how she does? To your point on the get out the vote effort, this is why early vote was critical for both of these campaigns, with some 79 million people voting early. Better to bank those votes. What if somebody gets sick? What if somebody's, kid has to stay out of school or whatever? Get those votes in now to get them locked and loaded.
Let me just change the conversation just for a moment, because we do have another call to make, and it's an NBC News projection in the state of South Carolina. South Carolina will go to Donald Trump when all the votes are counted later. And here's where the breakdown right now that Donald Trump, again, the projected winner. 24% of the vote in there, a vote difference of about 104,000. But again, Donald Trump will pick up South Carolina. Here's where it leaves us on the road to 270. Donald Trump out in front with 99. Kamala Harris, 27.
We've got a few key battlegrounds where polls have closed. They're counting, but we don't have results yet. Still either too early to call or too close to call. Let's go to NBC's Garrett Haake. He's at Trump headquarters in West Palm Beach, Florida. Mar-a-Lago, tell us what the campaign is saying to you.
Well, Savannah, what seems to be calming nerves down the street at Mar-a-Lago is what they're seeing out of Georgia right now, a state you were just discussing, where their key to victory was essentially blowing the doors off in rural turnout and improving their margins among minority voters, Latino voters, black voters. The campaign is seeing, in the same exit polls we're looking at, improvement among black voters, particularly black men, who the Trump campaign has spent heavily for months and months and months to try to win over, even just a few percentage points, the kind of thing that could make a difference in a state decided by fewer than 12,000 votes 4 years ago. The other thing that I think has accrued to Trump's favor in Georgia is the resumption of unity among Georgia Republicans. Remember, there was a huge fallout with Brian Kemp, the popular Republican governor there, after 2020. Trump and Kemp made amends, although they rarely appeared together on the campaign trail, the two singing from the same hymnal in the race's closing weeks, along with a lot of these other Trump candidates, could be helpful to Trump in that state.
All right, Garrett, we have a call to make. This is North Carolina, the governor's race there. Josh Stein, the Democrat, takes the race there. He faced off against the Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, a very controversial candidate. And the polls have shifted. Well, we talked about ticket splitting, where perhaps the vote for the presidency might be different than the vote down ballot. This perhaps will be an indication of that. Josh Stein, the winner of the governor's race in North Carolina. Just a brief word about this controversial lieutenant governor candidate. You both are jumping to tell me who wants to take it.
Let me just say one
we got 9 hours to go here.
One small thing, which is this, because Kristen will get into, I think, how controversial this Republican gubernatorial candidate was.
That to me.
But just remember the ticket splitting piece. This is a state that has ticket split president, governor before. That's it, right? So this, I think,
they have a Democratic governor right now.
That's
Roy
exactly
Cooper.
right. So if somebody's looking at this going, well, the Democratic governor won in North Carolina, doesn't that mean maybe that Vice President Harris is a lock? It does not. And just to throw that out there, this is a state that where Republicans know how to check a Republican for president and a Democrat for governor.
But this was a campaign on Mark Robinson's behalf. It was beset by problems.
Beset by problems because he was determined that he posted some highly controversial comments on an adult website. And so the backlash was massive. This result was expected. The question is, that was, by the way, one of the controversies. I'm giving you the biggest one. The question is, will he drag down support for former President Trump? We don't know the answer, but we do know that in 2020, President Biden was not able to win this state because there was, in part, it's believed, a controversial Democratic candidate for Senate, and that did sink his chances. Now, just to zoom out a little bit, a Democrat hasn't won the state of North Carolina since 2008, when Barack Obama did it. Trump added 3 campaign stops in these closing days of the race.
But the whole weekend there, 3 days straight in North Carolina.
How important this state is to his path.
Also a sense that it might have been slipping away and trying to shore up there.
Absolutely.
North Carolina was very, very tight in 2022. Trump won it, but it was right up there in terms of narrow margins.
Which absolutely. And it's a good reminder that even if the electoral vote count ultimately has a pretty wide gap, these margins can be very tight, and those electoral votes, listen, they all go to the winner, right? So that's what matters here in a state like North Carolina.
Well, we already talked to Garrett Haake, who was in West Palm at Trump headquarters. Let's go over to Peter Alexander. He's at the Harris headquarters in Washington.
Hey, Savannah, you just heard from Garrett a moment ago talking about how Donald Trump's team seems to be satisfied that he is doing a bit better with those black and Latino voters right now. Similarly, the Harris campaign feels good that she is outperforming with white voters over Joe Biden's performance with them in some of our early exit poll indications in parts of the country right now. One thing they're keeping an eye on. Another thing I'm hearing from senior officials within the campaign as they get ready to start the program here is that they are seeing really good enthusiasm among those youngest voters, those college students in particular right now. They're talking about long lines. You know what? Let me do this. They're starting the Star-Spangled Banner. I'll give it back to you with respect to our country, then we'll come back in a moment.
All right, Peter, that is Harris headquarters in Washington, D.C. We've got Tom Llamas over at the big board.
Yeah, we're talking Georgia, right? Because it is so close. A reminder here, we're talking about Democrats feeling a little hopeful in North Carolina, Republicans feeling a little better about Georgia. If they swap, right, if Democrats win North Carolina and Republicans win Georgia, they're both 16 electoral votes. We're back to square one where we were in 2020. Let's talk about Georgia tonight, because what we're seeing is both camps are overperforming, so it's going to be a nail-biter. Remember, in 2020, it came down to about 12,000 votes, a little under that. Let's start in Atlanta, the metro region. Cobb County, we have 57% of the vote in. And let's see how Biden did, 56%. This is actually, Cobb County tells the story of the Atlanta metro region. Newt Gingrich represented Cobb County, and look how Democrats have been able to run up the score. For Romney in 2012, Clinton flips it, and look how they're growing the margins. And tonight, that's exactly what Kamala Harris is doing. She's growing the margins in Cobb County. Let's go around. Let's see what we have in Fulton. Fulton, 53%. Let's see how that compares to Biden, 72. She's holding her own around the Atlanta metro region. Let's see over here. Gwinnett, we only have about 1% in, not really worth a discussion there. Clayton County, 70% in, slightly overperforming Biden. That's pretty good. We'll keep moving. Henry County, 1% in. This is one of those swing counties we can talk about. You know, 1% in. I don't know how much we're going to be able to say there. Rockdale County, again, those Atlanta suburbs, 77% of the vote in. She's overperforming there. Okay, that's Harris. That's the Democrats. Let's go to these rural regions. Rayburn, 95% in. Trump at 78 in 2020. He's at 78 right now. You can see he's holding his marks. Union County, a little bit lower, but again, he's around the 80% mark where he should be, and overperforming in White County. Again, those are the rural counties. Let's go to Georgia's Black Belt, where they have counties with lots of African-American voters. Here in Doherty, this is about 70% African-American here, slightly overperforming Biden. So again, guys, what I'm trying to say here is that right now, it's very similar to what we saw in 2020. Trump seems to be hitting his marks where he was in the rural counties. In those African-American counties and around the Atlanta region, Democrats are hitting those marks. It's going to be very close. It's one of the reasons why when we click on Georgia right here, it is literally just too close to call, guys.
All right, Tom, we got a lot ahead here. We're going to take a break, and then another state closing its polls. Which candidate will it bring closer to those crucial 270 electoral college votes? We will be right back.
Yeah, I feel like we're good with this. Tell you all what, so this is what we were watching. Feel free to put it up on your monitors. Meanwhile, I'm going to take a little break, and we'll be back shortly with a little bit of gameplay. Alright, everybody. We're back. I hope you'll see Super Chat's a lot easier on here. But yeah, I picked up Sonic X Shadow Generations recently. I think it's still pretty good. I mean, I've been working on the original game, which I played years ago. I have not even touched Shadow Generations, but yeah, we're gonna touch that tonight. Testing. Yeah, I'm gonna check I know I'm coming in loud and clear. Yeah. At least I can hear that okay. What's wrong with these earphones? That's for sure. I was gonna play Shadow Generations, but if I can't hear it, I can't really enjoy it that much right now. That's okay, the prop makes it nice in a moment. There it is. Okay, I think that works, yeah. Yep. Okay, well, at least I can enjoy this without having a sound. Yeah, I've been getting into Vampire Survivors lately. I should be quite a little bit addictive, yeah. I've enjoyed it as a free trial from Nintendo Online. It's like, you know what? Let me check on my phone real quick. Maybe I might be able to hear it to the phone. Let me see. Boop, doop. Doing. Okay, I think that works, yeah. Yep. Okay, well, at least yeah. Yeah, I didn't think the audio was coming out to the stream as well from the Switch. Sheesh. What is up with this thing? That's a detail I'm gonna have to check later. Oh, anyway, but that's okay. We'll play this for a little while. Better than nothing. Yeah, but I've unlocked quite a bit. Time minutes with Llama. Just we'll just pick a goal that I can take care of tonight. How many bats have I gotten so far? Yeah, okay. Yep. 50 with Llama. Limits in Green Acres. You know what? Let me go with that boss rush. Let's see. Let's see if I can actually find that. Yeah, I'll go with Christine Devlin. It's a boss rush. There's the boss zone. Yep. Oh wait, now that's Bone Zone. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Green Acres 3 minutes. Yeah. I'm gonna go with Green Acres. Green Acres is the place to be. Da 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 dee. And yeah, I know, I'm quite aware. It's like, you know, well, we don't have a second monitor right now, or another camera to put that's the second monitor, which make it easier. But yeah, I'm essentially pulling a Corona by hindering my visibility, my timing of the video, of the gameplay. Hey girl, hey you, hi. There you go, right on time. Oh yeah. Yeah, here we go, let's go. Yeah, I need like an offensive weapon that work right now, so let's get this, I do find I like the whip best, actually. I like the whip. Thank you. There's the old guy in the middle, just obviously you unlock a few characters. This is like the only way you'll be able to see these weapons if you go. This guy, you know, the bone from the skeleton, the cherry bomb from the panda, and the celestial dusting from one of the other characters. I forget which one. But yeah, I mean, look at this game. This is actually quite addictive. And I'm actually a fan of the garlic. That actually does some pretty good damage, as opposed to the what was it called? Well, anyway, the little leafy shield there. Looks like a leaf to get a shield from that, but it's not actually doing damage. Ah, here we go. Speak of the garlic. I got some bats. Na 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 na. That's right, yeah. If you actually go after you got to take a bit of distance where you can see that we can get the rings and the two halves and actually do some fun with that. But I'm thinking I'm not gonna do that right now. It's a bit much. But essentially it's a game of surviving. You just let these weapons do the work and just try to survive for the time limit. But yeah, like I said, this game is actually pretty good for what's pentagram. And that's why you want to upgrade the pentagram as soon as possible, because we upgrade the pentagram, the items actually stick around. But yeah, I like this character that bears my name. My first name. Yeah, because the pentagram is good, and hook it when you pair with the crown, that gives you extra EXP in the level up. Then you get to actually do some good damage in the experience gems. They come to you. Clock lance, it actually slows time, if I remember correctly. Yeah, oh yeah, that and two rings allows you to slow time. Okay, well since I have that, I'm feeling a bit hurt. Yeah, I'm gonna go north to get the silver ring first. Because that one actually does good, it's just, it allows you to, it allows protection upon you, which is obviously a good thing for all these foes that are coming in. the attraction orb. You definitely want that because that allows you to, thank you very much. Yes, I will keep up good work. I'm still working on Book 0 HD, by the way. I'm making great progress with that. We got many more pages colored. And, as you may have seen, as it was obvious within one of the pages uploaded, yes, I am experimenting with a new type of ink that works in line like colored pencil, if I may say. I feel like that was safe. And yes, obviously there's a difference between that and the RSVP Pentel ink. Quite the difference. Especially when you add marker to it. As I've learned, but it's still viable. We're still deciding with it. Well, there goes that treasure chest option. Oh, burn it up! Burn it up! Burn up a bunch of demons! Tarot cards leaving behind these fields. Ghost guys. Ghost-like guys. I like marshmallows. Yeah, I think they're called like milk demons or something. Happy birthday, Jose. It is cumpleaños, Jose. Jose Ganduzi on his lovely birthday. Just, Jose, can you see? Back in Double Rosie. Man. Why don't you? Next. Green Acres. Oh, treasure. Single treasure. Single feature. Hey, have you noticed the March Roscoe's right? No, I see. I got it. No, this is my pink wallpaper. I won't need this soap anymore. Come on, boys, go. I got all the food. Yeah, I'll keep fun. Yeah, fun. Come on. Ooh, these guys. Ooh. Come on. Next thing there. Brave. Bonus. Oh, nice surprise. Oh, even better. Level up. Where's the crown already? Where's the blade crown? I want to upgrade the pentagram. Usually I get the crown a bit sooner than this. I guess I get to choose it a lot sooner than this. Yeah, Laurel, that's what it's called. Yeah, shields from damage, yes. Guard actually does damage. But yeah, the Laurel I've actually learned from experiencing upgrading the 2 red weapon halves to make that a great weapon. decent. But still, I like the garlic better. Stay alive. Ah, okay, here's that ring. Test is bearer. Then the gold ring will actually make things worse. Oh, bats. Yeah, that's what the silver ring does. And that's a good thing. The bats all, folks. Not quite all. Let's go south for this. Oh, yes, please. Enzel. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Enzel. Unzel. Enzel. Enzel BB1. Another whip upgrade. Whip it good. Do 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 do. No, boy. Do that on my own time. But at least we can do this because I can enjoy this with or without audio. Yeah, this is quite the addictive game and just downing a whole bunch of demons and demonic-like creatures. And beings and things. And yes, just recently released. An Ode to Castlevania. The DLC right there. I'm gonna take the bracelets. That's an upgrade recognized, still have not collected. Everybody, am I in such a big camera? There we go. a third of the way through and surviving the Green Acres. With all these bunch of various things. Not things and stuff with barcodes, and that's basically it for the packaging. Branded codes like Torex. They're coming into rows. And that, treasure over there. Look around. Another card. I used up all my rerolls, so I'll have to think what I can get from this. Use that option. That's another really good offensive weapon. Yeah, we'll go with this one. Free upgrade. Free upgrade. None of that. Real-time slowing death cheating schematic. Because you make it to the limit, you're gonna end up being some of the way from the field. But you break that limit and somehow survive longer, then there are achievements and unlockables for it. Obviously you're not gonna level up anymore because all the enemies except for that guy is gone. We're still going south to get the other ring. If I pick up this ring, it's going to be like, it'll be a mess. Ah, yes! Let's take that Bible. I'll take that book. This Libro. Imported from Mexico. No, it's not. Yes, it wasn't. That was just a silly joke. Okay. That was a joke. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I get the gold ring. I forget which one of the two red tabs. Essentially increases enemy spawns and makes them more difficult to subdue. Ah! Triple play bonus! 3 up play! You can get up to 5 bonus rarity. Da-da-da-da-da. It's triple time! The easier it is for the experience points to accumulate and need more upgrades. And when you upgrade everything you got, then you just collect money. Ending currency money. Go draw Monday. Which By the way, I have seen the original Tom Jerry movie, which I thought was pretty fun. And yep, they allowed them to extensively talk outside of their limited time scope in the bunch of shorts. That was fun. Oh yes, here we go. Yes. Of course, that would be great. One of the things I have. Moo. Yep. Essentially, Vampire Survivors. It's quite fun. Like I said, quite addictive. I feel like that's good enough for now. But yeah, I'll tell you what, by next stream, if I do another gaming session next stream, I'll be sure that the volume from the Switch is actually going through. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and we pray for Kamala to win. Kamala, 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 win! Prophecy speaks. Y'all have a good, safe night. Thank you very much, and take care. Be blessed.